guys, Boxing Gossip here. I'm back from my holiday and I've just watched The Gloves Are Off, Joshua versus Klitschko. Now, I'm late to the party here. I know that the footage of this Gloves Are Off programme has been out there for a few days now, and I'm sure by now the vast majority of people tuning into this video will have A, either seen The Gloves Are Off, or B, heard a review on it on one of the other good boxing YouTube channels that are out there. Regardless, did want to put down a few thoughts on it, did want to add my hat into the mix to discuss this program. Having missed The Gloves Are Off initially, I received a load of messages on my social media telling me not to bother catching up with this program because it was boring. Essentially, The Gloves Are Off didn't really reveal anything new, and that there was no conflict between the two guys. But as you know, I'm an addict to boxing, I'm an addict to all things boxing, and was very happy to sit down, watch it, and work my way through it, you know, even if it wasn't going to be a vintage Gloves Are Off. And I think my first thought, you know, having sat down and having watched the program, is really these are possibly not two characters that are absolutely made for each other. You know, Wladimir Klitschko, he is the classic cold, robotic, structured, disciplined operator. At times I've seen Klitschko actually be quite entertaining in these kind of programs. He's the kind of guy who actually becomes a bit more of an entertainer, when he's up against someone whose behaviour is a bit rogue. You know, Klitschko is actually quite funny how he dismisses opponents and how he, you know, talks down to opponents when their behaviour is, you know, maybe not behaviour that you'd necessarily want your young kids to be influenced by. So, classic examples of that. I mean, who's Klitschko fought in England? Well, his brother fought Derek Chisora, who slapped Vitaly Klitschko and spat in Vladimir's face. Wladimir fought Tyson Fury, who, you know, turned up to the press conference dressed as Batman. Wladimir fought David Haye, who, you know, was going around with images of the Klitschkos having been beheaded, etc. You know, and realistically, I think those kind of opponents in the past have brought out the best in Wladimir Klitschko. You know, when he can kind of, you know, really intellectually look down on the opponents and play the role of the therapist, which I know he's referred to himself to on multiple occasions, and how he's going to teach a lesson in the ring. You know, that's when you see Wladimir Klitschko at his most interesting. Anthony Joshua, he is what he is at this stage. You know, the stay humble routine, I think we now have to accept, is here to stay. He perhaps isn't the most naturally hilarious, naturally charismatic guy, but he's very well scripted, he's very well put together. And I think while some hardcore boxing fans who watch a lot of boxing like myself are perhaps slightly bored of the whole stay humble routine, I think we've got to be honest and say that it's actually done a really, really good job of projecting Joshua and his image to the mainstream casual audience. I know I've certainly got a lot of friends who are casual fans, you know, from work, from family, from other parts of my life, who you always refer to what a nice guy Anthony Joshua is, you know, what a fan they are of Anthony Joshua. And I guess the British boxing public, you know, we've been used to the antics of the Chisoras and the Hayes and the Tyson Furies over the past 5 years or so. And I guess seeing a guy behaving like Anthony Joshua, even if it is a bit scripted, even if it is a bit forced, you know, is refreshing in a certain extent. But what it does mean, unfortunately, is that if you were tuning into The Gloves Are Off, hoping to see Joshua versus Dillian Whyte, or hoping to see Tyson Fury versus Wladimir Klitschko, unfortunately, the two personalities simply don't gel like that. There's a lot of respect, and to me, the respect in this program borderlines on being awkward at times. And I don't know if I'm the only one who necessarily felt like that, but I think there's at least 2 occasions, maybe 3 occasions, where during the filming, Wladimir Klitschko reaches over the table and does a sort of awkward fist pump with Anthony Joshua. Now I understand apparently Wladimir Klitschko, is paranoid about catching a cold, so he doesn't want to shake hands, but it just kind of looks a bit odd, really. These 2, massive guys going to fight, and they're kind of being very, very jovial around the table, exchanging fist pumps. Traditionally you would say that may not be the best way to sell a fight. However, I think we can probably all agree that the hype and the excitement around this fight is at such a level now that they perhaps don't need to be flipping tables for the sake of it in order to sell more pay-per-views. So that was my first observation there. I thought Wladimir Klitschko was subtly trying to play mind games. He very much portrayed himself as like the older statesman. There were several times he almost appeared to be giving Joshua friendly advice as the older man. There were several times, where he sort of took the lead on answering questions and on directing the conversation. Referring to the experience and referring to the things that he's done in the past. But one thing Wladimir Klitschko was keen to highlight throughout the Gloves Are Off, and certainly something you have to agree with, is that this is the major fight in heavyweight world boxing at present. With David Haye out of action following on from the Tony Bellew fight, with Tyson Fury out of action due to all of his problems, and with guys like Joseph Parker and Deontay Wilder very much established and on the scene, but perhaps not solidified at the very top of the division. This is the glamour fight, this is the big fight out there, this is the big heavyweight fight in world boxing, and I think that's the point that Klitschko was keen to make. There was some suggestion from Anthony Joshua that if he was managing a fighter in a similar situation to him, that Joshua would maybe look for that fighter to have 1 or 2 more learning fights. But Joshua said at the same time, as a fighter, you just want to take these opportunities whilst they're available to you. And I think I've got to give Joshua some credit for that. I'm one of those, if I'm honest, I actually was slightly nervous about a prospect like Joshua taking on Dillian Whyte as early as he did. I thought that was a fight that could have maybe been left to marinate for another year and maybe be for a world title. I was slightly nervous about Joshua fighting Charles Martin. I remember thinking to myself that, it was a big step up from the level of opposition he'd been in with, and whether it was beneficial to win a world championship. And I guess I've been sceptical at times of how, Joshua's been moved forward throughout his career. And my scepticism remains. This will be Joshua's 19th fight, and to take on a guy like Wladimir Klitschko in your 19th fight is a huge, huge ask. And it's something that I'm not 100% sold on myself. But one thing I will say is Eddie Hearn's been absolutely spot on with his timing recently, and the way he's timed Joshua's career, the way he's chosen the fights at the right time, the way he's made moves, he's really timed it to perfection. He put his money up for the Charles Martin fight, and he saw that Charles Martin was a weak mark, and he's given Joshua some learning fights following on from that fight. So maybe Eddie Hearn's got it right here again, but I think one thing that both Joshua and Klitschko agreed on is that this was the fight out there, this was the time to make the fight was now, and the opportunity was there. Joshua, he didn't rise to any of the Klitschko mind games. He said that it was his time. He said that he'll be looking for the knockout. He said that he's not expecting Wladimir Klitschko to find any weaknesses within him. That's something that we can necessarily discuss in another video. Certainly next week there's going to be keys to victory videos on my channel. There's going to be key question videos on my channel. There'll of course be a final breakdown and a final prediction. This is the biggest fight in the world right now as far as I'm concerned, and I'm certainly going to cover it to the as much as I can on my channel, definitely. But yeah, Joshua seemed very cool, calm, collected. Wladimir Klitschko came out with a line, I'll congratulate him if he wins, and I will help him rebuild when he loses, or something to that effect. And Joshua tried to turn that round on Wladimir and say, well, he'll congratulate me when I win. Neither guy's rise to it. Neither guy necessarily, really looked to tear into the other one. It wasn't at any point overly aggressive or overly tense. But yeah, I personally found it slightly awkward. One other final point I'll throw into the mix just before calling this video a day. Wladimir Klitschko did raise an interesting point. He said that after a quarter of a century of activity within the sport, he actually feels that the break has done him good. He actually feels that he's not over the hill, age 41. He doesn't feel like the Fury loss took much out of him. He kind of thinks that having been so active and so continuously, busy in the sport of boxing, that a break of a year, give a year off to recover, to heal, will do him good. And that's an interesting angle for this fight. There's a huge amount of talk that Klitschko's a guy who's over the hill. There's a huge amount of talk that, Father Time's catching up with Klitschko, and that may well be the case. We won't know till after the fight, I guess. But there is a counter-argument there, and Wladimir Klitschko, eloquently made that counter-argument, which is that he's someone who's suffered with injuries, he's someone who's been immensely active, he's someone who was fighting very regularly, and to have a year off for the first time in 25 years, whilst it may not have been ideal preparation, perhaps there's some benefit there behind the scenes. Did this gloves are off really get me hyped for the fight? Did it really get me pumped up to see the guys clash next week or next week and a half? Honest answer, probably not. Having said that, this is probably one of those rare fights where it actually doesn't need that extra level of excitement. This is one of those rare fights where I don't think it needs fake bad blood or anything out of the ordinary in order to sell extra pay-per-views. I think this fight is already at a level, the two fighters' profiles are already at a level where this is going to be box office. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know your thoughts on the programming. Do you agree that the two characters didn't gel? Do you agree that it was slightly awkward? Were there additional points either made that were of interest? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. What do you make of this promotion so far? Really seems to be starting to get into gear now, and going to see more and more hype and more build up for this fight next week. So I'm looking forward to that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. If you've enjoyed the video, please take the time to hit the thumbs up button. If you're new or you haven't tuned in before or subscribed before, please do take the opportunity to hit subscribe. And whether you're a new subscriber or an existing subscriber, please click the option to be notified when I upload new videos so you can see when I'm uploading. As I say, lots of coverage to come on this fight next week. Prediction video, keys to victory video, weigh-in video, may even do a betting angles video just on this fight. Certainly one I'm getting hyped for, as you guys can tell. Many thanks indeed for watching, guys, and comment, like, subscribe.